response to Chapter 2, the delivery of appropriate services to students with special needs. The first question is, what is response to intervention, RTI, and what are the tiers? So RTI is the model for delivering multi-tiered systems of support. This helps promote better academic performance for all students, and it decreases behavior problems. They also provide support to the evaluation for and the identification of learning disabilities in the event that a special education referral is needed because of a constantly low academic performance, even with the teacher's instruction. So there are 3 tiers. Tier 1 is that the general education is the foundation for all students and is usually aligned with the state and national standards. Individualized plans are made for students with disabilities, but they still spend most of their time in the general education classroom. Evidence-based instruction allows for students to not be unnecessarily referred to special ed classrooms if they can stay in the general education classroom. In general education classrooms, there is differentiating instruction. This affects how instruction is delivered, and the instructions are adjusted in response to the individual's needs. Tier 2 and Tier 3. These students are at risk for having low academic performance through the monitoring in the general education classroom, and they qualify for more intensive intervention support. It is essential for these students to have frequent progress monitoring, adaptive instruction, smaller group size, and larger and more detailed instruction. The students who are Tier 3 show consistently low academic performance, and they require the most intensive services and typically perform below the 10th percentile. Question 2 was describe each of the 7 steps on the IEP process. Step 1 is pre-referral. The school must make sure that the student has received high-quality instruction and additional instructional assistance if necessary. This ensures that it is not because of poor teaching or that the child does not speak English well, and that is why it ensures that that's not why the child is performing poorly. An RTI team documents how and when the student is struggling, determines the effectiveness of classroom adaptations and additional assistance, and monitors the student's progress during the instruction. Pre-referral is to determine if the general education teacher alone can resolve the student's educational or behavioral difficulties, or if it needs to be taken further. Step 2 is referral. These are students who already come to school with an identified disability and need special education. Oftentimes, these students' disabilities were present at infancy, and they have been receiving special education since preschool. Students who may also have a reason for referral are those who are significantly behind academically or who continually misbehave and disrupt the classroom. Step 3 is identification. This step is to determine if the student has a learning disability and if special education services are required and what types of services are needed. A team helps determine the student's strengths and struggles. Education performance, behavior and community, and information from the school and home, and a medical history help inform the team about the student's disabilities. Step 4 is eligibility. Information from the previous step is used to see if the student actually has a disability and qualifies for special education services. The team decides what related services are needed so that the student's education can be planned and delivered. Step 5 is developing the IEP. Parents and educational professionals who are part of the student's IEP team make the decisions about what placements and services would most benefit the student. The outline of the IEP is made, and they determine the goals for improvement and create the education program for the student. Step 6 is the implementation of the IEP. Once the IEP is developed, it begins. Minor changes in the goals do not qualify for a new IEP, but major changes require the parents to be notified in writing. And the last step, Step 7, is the evaluation and reviews. There has to be accountability for each IEP developed, and to have that accountability, the IEP review meetings are needed to ensure that the students are making the goals and making educational progress. Educators have to carefully describe expectations for the student in ways that can be evaluated, and in district-wide testing, assessment adaptations are allowed for many students with disabilities, and with some students, alternative assessments are made available. Question 3 is, what are related services? 3 most commonly used related services are speech therapy, physical therapy, and assistive technology. Students are guaranteed these needed related services by IDEA 04. Related services are provided with no additional cost to the students' families. For medical services, it's a related service if the school nurse can provide it. If a physician is provided, then it is not considered a related service.